Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Yusril. Welcome once again to the Tribble Timewarp. It is the 24th of June 2016, and while this might be a short episode, there is not a spoiler warning attached to this one, because we're looking at the new Pioneer interior, so there are no real plot elements attached. Maybe a couple of names, nothing significant. At least nothing that's going to spoil it for anybody else. So, we'll start on the lower deck, the main deck really, because the bridge is almost just cosmetic. Turbo lift at the bottom centre, and the first thing you'll notice is that we have got the 60s style film grain effect in play. It's fairly subtle in here, but if I close in on the wall, you can see the effect. It's some random, almost pixelation, almost red-green effect that's giving the impression of film grain. Moving out into the corridor, the film grain continues, but almost immediately we get this narrow peripheral vision, this black soft focus at the corners, which I must admit I find to be distracting. Now, I know they use soft focus, mostly Vaseline smeared on the camera lens, mostly whenever they were looking at a pretty woman in the 60s series, but here, yeah, no. That I think would be best either toned down or just removed entirely, and there are several points in the map where it does actually disappear. And the first of these is actually round in the sick bay. Sound effects are all present and accounted for and correct. I mean, you could get picky and point out that the biobed indicators aren't moving with the patient on the bed, excuse me, just for decorum's sake. Unforeseen problem with short skirts. Also, the Vulcan medic does not appear to have much in the way of bedside manner. The tricorder display is on the front, dear, not the top. But yes, that does need to be fixed. At least we now have confirmation that the models are wearing underwear. That was completely accidental. Meanwhile, you'll notice that the film grain is, in fact, the film grain's disappeared as well. We have got a completely unaffected area here in the back of the sickbay in the doctor's office. Clearly the doctor, whilst fascinated with our warp field, is also not a great fan of eye strain. If we move back out to here, yep, there we go, film grain's back, you can see the shimmer. Well, I hope you can see the shimmer. I've no idea what YouTube is going to do to this once it's finished processing, and the peripheral vision narrowing is also back, and it really is right the way down. It's cutting out a good, what, 10% of the screen around the edges? Come back out here and bonk, it's immediately gone. Right. Meanwhile, continuing on around the sickbay, the doctor has got his interesting collection of bones, skulls, Ming vases, and other oddities. Although I have to wonder what a horse would make for the Ming vase, probably accuse us of recycling a dead relative. Doctor himself, of course, has the usual duty officer assignments. This lower deck is actually more or less fully functional, so if you do want to run your duty officer missions, you can do. And with that done, we're back out into the main corridor. Continue on round, we have got to our left the conference room, although that's not the right door, and to the right the transporter room. And you'll be happy to hear that they have fixed the effects. We now have proper TOS 60 style transporter effects, and we just need somebody. There we go. Apparently they've got nothing better to do all day, and they forget to put their mobile phones away as well. Still, there you go. Panel itself is, whoop, shouldn't have double tapped. Pretty much all present and accounted for. Can't quite read the text on the control display. And also, well, I noticed that the sliders are out of position. Shouldn't those three move together when they're using the transporter? Anyhow, I'm being really picky here. Also, comm badge. Yeah, just saying. Standard animations and all that, but it'd be a nice touch that if you're using the TOS style uniforms, that rather than doing that, yeah, she does that! Hey! So the animation is there, it's just that for some reason they're tapping their comm badges beforehand. So if that could be tidied up, it's a nice touch. Meanwhile, in comes Mr. Right Angle Guy once again. These are some very short shore leave breaks they're taking. And off we go into the next room, which is the conference and briefing room. It's actually this door, not the one next to it. I've no idea what this door is, by the way. I'm assuming it's the broom closet. Maybe it's the toilet. I mean, it's not on any map. I don't know. Maybe it's where... Ah! I know what this unmarked door is. Never ever open this door, ladies and gentlemen. That's where we hide the Tribbles. Also worth noting that we've got a couple of map errors here in the sickbay. Just some red rooms there that are blocked out for some reason, but are not accessible. So either they need to be tidied up on the minimap or put in. Meanwhile, in the lounge, I think, also some odd lighting there. Pretty sure I just saw the lighting flicker slightly. Out into the corridor. Back in, might have been... Yeah, there's something very odd going on with the lighting in here. You can just see that little flicker. If we step back here, then move forwards again. Yeah, I think it's something to do with a light source up on the roof. Maybe if we're underneath the fluorescent tube lights. No, I know what it is. It's the 60s effects disappearing again. This side of the room, we have 60s. This side of the room, we have modern, 60s, modern, 60s, and we don't tolerate that kind of thing in America, sir. Right, so, replicators present and accounted for. Councillor, again, what can I say, women wore less back then. So you've got the Councillor Duty Officer missions, the chef, who is parked on the table for some reason and doubtless grumbling about the replicators stealing his jobs, and of course the bartender, who is apparently teleporting, which is kind of weird in and of itself. Still, Andorian chainmail. I'm told it's the rage in the latest fashion. Right, moving on once again. The briefing room. You have got in here your library files, your account bank, the Federation envoy, and the generic terminal. I'm a little surprised this isn't up on the bridge in the captain's chair. It would perhaps make a bit more sense. After all, that's where the main comm for the captain is. Doesn't really make much sense to come down here, get the Federation envoy, who is also teleporting around mysteriously, and then use the comm to speak to him. So maybe move that up onto the bridge, if only for laziness' sake. Continuing on, we have got the shuttle bay, and you'll notice that I have no small craft selected, therefore there is no small craft in Harikaze's shuttle bay. Speak to the small craft selection officer, and like I said, no small craft. Worth noting that the standard issue gear has now got its own artwork from the TOS period, including most notably the twin phaser array Mark 1 that we got as a mission reward, the photon torpedo launcher Mark 1, and the impulse engines have got Constitution style double necks and double vents at the back. Nice touch. Let's carry on. So, round the corner. Next stop, I believe, is the armory. No, it's the engineering lab. My apologies. The armory is next up after this one. Pretty much what we saw in the intro missions. They haven't done a lot with this, except that we have got a missing console here, and we have also got our scientists. And again, you've got the standard science duty officer missions available if you're so inclined. That console, however, well, I appreciate the Klingons fairly thoroughly junked the place, but it does need to be fixed. And the 60s lens effects are back for the moment. Next stop, the armory, loaded up with TOS-style weapons, which is what you'd expect. Also home to our tactical officer. Remember, tactical and operations war... Actually... Tactical come under command at this point, don't they? So she's wearing the correct gold rather than red. I was thinking for a second she was ops, in which case they would have been wearing red in this era and gold in the modern eras, but... Ops has always been a bit of an orphan department, hasn't it? Which is ironic, considering that it's arguably the single most important one day to day. Still, Tactical is shooting up the targets on the range, or she would be if there were actually any targets to shoot up. And the same goes for our anonymous friend here, who is apparently practicing shooting one-handed while holding a communicator, which is entirely commendable. You never know when you're going to need to yell for a beam out. She's doing a wonderful job brassing up the back wall. We'll leave her to it. Maybe just add some targets there. Right, and that brings us back to the turbo lift. Last stop is, of course, engineering, where we can talk to our operations officer, who is, yeah, he is red in this era, isn't he? And again, the usual missions available, and of course, our chief engineer, who is engaging in the worship of Atom. All hail Atom, whose division doth power the ship, etc. Oh, wait, no, wrong franchise. So, with the lower deck done, our next stop is the bridge. And welcome to the bridge of the Harakaze. Constitution MSD panel here. Yes, this is a rerun of the Constitution bridge, standardized modules, etc, etc. No helmsman and no science officer. Well, we do have a science officer, Tivrel, who, again, we're getting some odd teleporting effects with these TOS-style chairs. I think those are the culprit rather than the characters. There may just be something odd with the way the sit interactions are working. On the one hand, it's trying to keep them on the chair, and then occasionally it teleports them off to, well, something in front of the chair. Now, as I was saying, we could, I think, put the captain's chair, well, put the general departmental communicator into the captain's chair. That would make much more sense for convenience's sake, for the lazy among us, or we could integrate it into the comms board at the back here. However, I owe thanks to Alex Kipura for pointing out one fairly significant little bug about the bridge, and to demonstrate this, we are going to use the proper safety features. Pull on an environment suit first of all. Look at this view screen, ladies and gentlemen. It is amazing. It is extremely amazing. It even has a proper parallax display, which the old Enterprise view screen never had. That's one advantage the Constitutions wouldn't enjoy until their refit. The reason why is because, well, it's kind of not a view screen. Oops. Also, new loading screen, which is kind of a nice touch. So yeah, that is the Pioneer Bridge. Just a quickie to get things warmed up on. We'll be kicking on with the next episode, Terminal Expanse, in, well, probably later today, to be honest, because this video hasn't been that long. But the Pioneer Bridge and interior, ladies and gentlemen, not a bad little piece of work, but it does have some loose ends that need tidying up. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Yuzral, that has been the Tribble Time Warp, and farewell.